don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and call to order our June meeting of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I think we've got agendas before us, hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. If you've had an opportunity to read the minutes and consider them, I could entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I motion we approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. I got a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I got a second. Is there any concerns with the minutes at all? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. I believe next we're gonna receive an update on the parks and recreation facilities.
All right. So we got some updates for you all, after being off for a little bit. So, to start, we have our Lenana Creek Trail update. If you guys remember, from a while back, over a year ago in May, we had that portion of the Lenana Creek Trail that got damaged by the flooding. So currently, City Council has voted to approve the contract with Hydrax, and they're going to work on the permits. And once the permits are approved, then we can finally start working with the structural engineer and contractors. So we are on our way.
Yeah, and there's, I believe, 3 different permits that are included to Texas Historic Commission, Army Corps of Engineers, actually 2 to the Army Corps of Engineers. So we have to submit those, they have to say yes, and then we have to do construction drawings, submit the construction drawings to them, because first they have to say, yes, you can rebuild on a public waterway, and then they have to see what we're building. So it's step 1 of several, but at least it's movement.
So, is that for just the end where it's really bad by Martinsville?
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
that section.
Yeah, that little retaining wall.
So what happens with the part that's close to Park Street? There's like a boardwalk that's all, it's got a metal frame, so it just needs a big rock removed from it and then new boards put on it because the metal frame is solid.
Yes, and we have that on our parks list, because since the retaining wall and the walkway itself wasn't washed away, it was just lightly damaged, that's something parks crews can fix. It's on Tommy's list. They were trying to get down there about 2 weeks ago, but it was still too wet to get some of their equipment, so that's on our list and should be worked on in the next 2 weeks or so, as long as the forecast stays like it is and it doesn't rain anymore.
And then cleanup between Park and Main, especially in
The Father Marhill area.
that area is really bad for a tourist attraction. It's bad.
Absolutely. Those rains for a few weeks really put us behind as far as trail cleanup, because of course it flooded over and over and over, and then a lot of the equipment we have to get down there was too heavy for a while, but it is starting to dry up. It's a blessing and a curse because it's
So that's
so,
good.
yes, it is. Yeah, and those don't have to have any permits, because most of that's tree clearing, rock clearing. Working on that boardwalk is just select board replacement and debris removal. So that's not a complete rebuild like that retaining wall is, because that one looks horrendous and is gonna need a lot of structural work on that one. So that's the only one that requires permits. Everything else the Parks Crew can do.
Was this Lenana Creek Trail reconstruction contract like a forbid thing?
So not the permits. The city is prohibited from doing bids for professional services, since we are hiring essentially a subject matter expert. It'd be the same thing if we were hiring a contractor for certain projects, architect. So essentially from there, we just hire a company that's a trusted, known company that has experience in it. When it goes out to bid for construction, it will go out for public bid. But since it's just the permit portion, we can just hire a subject matter expert.
There's still no timeline on that?
Not exactly. The permits can take 90 to 120 days. But Hydrax has said they think these will go a little bit faster, because we're not building an entirely new structure. This is not doing some boardwalk over the creek that's gonna impede flood waters. This is just kind of rebuilding what's currently there. So they think it'll go a little bit faster. And once we kind of have a positive thumbs up from these 2 organizations, then we'll start working with a structural engineer, because of course, if these both come back and say, no, you cannot rebuild, we don't want to have outlaid all the money for a structural engineer to redesign something.
Was this insured in any way?
It was not. It was built in the 90s, when I think Ab and a bunch of his friends went out there and we just kind of built it.
Well, I believe the Army Corps of Engineers came in and did substantial work on it when it was built in the 90s, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Yeah, but a lot of it from our insurance was, since it's more of a, An- it's kind of grandfather, it's more of an earthen feature, they were kind of like, we can't insure that. So that was a fun little surprise after that May flood.
Sure.
Can I ask one more question? And I really don't think this is part of you, but, so, part of the reason that the flooding got to be so bad in the Father Marco area
Mhm.
was, if you look at Main Street Bridge,
Mhm.
there is a solid debris dam from the top of the bridge to the water. So the water, when the water came up, it's got nowhere to go but back up into the, I mean, it was like, and it's like, somewhere along the way, I'm sure it's not Parks and Rec,
Mhm.
but because it affects you, the city, somebody's gotta make a deal with the state that we can go in and clear that dam
Mhm.
so the water can go. That water is just, it is a beaver dam deluxe. I mean, and when, at the worst of it, there was like this much space
Mhm.
for the water to go through. So of
Good.
course it all
Yes, it
backed
went
up
in.
and flooded the area to the extreme.
Actually, it cut the creek about 2 foot higher in front of
Are we aware of that?
the dam.
So we've been told about a few little debris dams that kind of come and go. I don't know that one particular, but I can,
Is this a text?
Go down there and look, I mean,
It
it's
come-
been there a year.
I
Okay.
sent an email to TxDOT about it.
okay,
It's
Yep.
Several large trees
Mhm.
got wedged in there, and
Mhm.
then of course everything's built up behind it. It's actually 2 dams now.
okay,
There's one in front and underneath, and there's
Mhm.
more ponds coming down and starting to build up there. And it is causing it to go to the side and start to
And
wash
back
out.
And sadly, the saddest part about it is where it collapsed at the Martinsville end, they used the most beautiful 4x10 cedar boards. I mean, this was like, and because it just kind of sat there, every time it flooded, one more came. So part of the dam is this beautiful lumber that sadly should have been salvaged for a lot of
Mhm.
money, but it's all part of the dam, yeah.
and that's something that I can make contact with TxDOT, and then a lot of times they will allow our Public Works Department, if we can reach it, go in there and pull it out, or they can come and assist, but, I'll put that on my list to check with them and see who would be allowed to go in and pull that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, because I'd like to prevent as much flooding as possible. I don't wanna have to do this again.
Let's keep moving.
All right, so, Temple what was Temple Spray Station is going to be, new Temple Park splash pad. Those that, joined us for our last park beautification day were able to see that we were gonna, have a new splash pad coming there, so the next slide is the rendering
Mhm.
of the potential splash pad at Temple Spray Station. So this is kind of like the information that they gave us, like what you would see.
Mhm.
And then the next one kind of gives you more of like an overhead. So like that's the overhead, and then that's like closer to where you can see the different water stations or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, and we picked out the colors to kind of match the red picnic tables that are currently out there and the blue shade structures. We are somewhat limited with what we can put on that site because we want to use the existing plumbing that's in place, so we don't have to rip out all the plumbing that's there. We also don't want to end up flooding any of our neighbors, and with our water usage right now, this is essentially a little bit smaller splash pad, but we did want to go with a few upright elements that will be eye-catching. We think it all matches and looks pretty cohesive. And if y'all are kind of good with this design, if anybody has any particular love or hate for any of the colors we picked out, we do have some flexibility with that. But once we want to make sure y'all had seen it, and then we'll give Craft Masters the go-ahead. Once they're given the go-ahead, our parks crew will start removing the structure that's currently out there. We're saving a little cash by having Tommy and his guys take out what's currently there. And then this is about a 2 to 3 month project from ordering to delivery to installation. And
Just in time for back to school.
yes, and what we've typically done, we faced the same situation when we finally got the Moroni splash pad working, is that We ended up leaving it open a lot longer than we had planned on. We basically left it open until we felt a little scared that it was gonna freeze and we needed to turn it off. So even if it isn't fully installed till August, we will probably leave it on till September, October, something like that.
Do we have any idea about the drainage and it being sufficient and filtering and everything, so we don't have another problem, like we do at Moroni?
The good thing about this system is it is not a recirculating system. A lot of Moroni, that's where we get the issues, is because Moroni's a big tank. We have to monitor the chemical levels, we have to monitor the chlorine, we have to have a certified pool manager check it every single day. This is just a drain system, like is currently at the spray station. So we won't be adding any additional water. We don't have to monitor the chemicals. We won't have to add any additional drainage because the drainage we have on site now is sufficient for this new design. So, knock on wood.
Does it have, on-off access, or is it run all the time, or how is that gonna, I mean, cause that's a great idea, I think that, but we can't afford to run water, 12 hours a day if somebody's not using it.
No, it's the same essentially keypad that we have at Moroni, that you go over there and push it, and it'll come on, and it runs for like 15 minutes or something like that. Turns back off, and you have to repress it to get it to run again.
Good.
And we have had issues in the past, at this spray station in particular, where we had some kiddos that went and jammed the button, and kind of flooded. And so then we changed it to a timer system. And so as of right now, we have the push button. If it does become a problem, there are different keypads we can switch out, if that becomes an issue. But at Moroni, it has not been a problem with anybody plugging up the button or anything like that.
It's not really a button, it's more of like a motion sensor as opposed to an actual button.
Mhm. So I think we'll have it with this one. So it won't just be running constantly, it'll just be if someone is out there and activating it.
What's the cost?
That was in the budget for $180,000. We're at about $170,000 right now. So we have about a $10,000 cushion in there, that's coming in under budget.
Is there already shade structures there? Or?
Yes, there are 3 shade structures over 3 picnic tables. And so we haven't spent that extra $10,000, because every once in a while there's a hiccup, there's something that needs to be fixed or remodeled. Or if we come in at the very end, everything goes in with no problem, we do have the option to add another shade, picnic tables, things like that around it. We just haven't done that yet because we like preserving a little bit of cash there when inevitably there's a hiccup.
How much was the old splash pad? I mean, the one that you splash park?
300,000 roughly, something like that. I think, and that one was primarily funded by the PAL organization and the Bright Foundation. So I think there was about 50,000 of city funds that went into it, and that was a lot for the concrete around it, the spray house, things like that.
These funds are coming from the general budget?
This one is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was in our capital improvement plan.
That was really good and smart.
Well, does anybody have any input on this?
Like the colors, like the plan of using the existing plumbing, like being under budget. Those are all good things. And that community that uses that park a lot gets to have a water park. So.
Were there many options on the features, or is this pretty much all you could do inside that budget?
A lot of it's the budget, being able to use the existing plumbing, and not having to put in bigger water lines or bigger drain lines. So the first iteration they gave me had, if you see like the little blue tower, it had 2 or 3 of those, but I had requested something bigger and eye-catching, so they switched it to the buckets. That on a timer will fill up and dump on the children.
Buckets are really fun for the kids. They enjoy that part.
And that's what they said. They're like, this one's pretty fun. It's pretty eye-catching. Gets the kiddos excited. It's a little bit bigger dump of water all at once, but overall it's the same water usage as 3 of the little blue towers would be. So that was the biggest compromise we have, is just trying to use that existing plumbing, because if we were going to rip out all the existing plumbing, do new drainage, it would be at least double.
All right, any other input, questions, recommendation?
I keep thinking you're trying to hand that to me.
Okay.
We don't vote on that, so I don't believe.
No, we're just
It's,
updating, giving you
by
an update.
consensus approval.
4th of July.
I thought it was already painted, has it not been painted?
At Ritchie Street, it's not painted yet.
Okay.
Y'all reviewed the two designs, I think 2 months ago. And then I went back to Tyson and said, this is the design y'all had liked, but asked if he could match the colors to the playground that's out there. And because the initial design was a lot of black, which fades very quickly. So we switched the color, so this was just the approved design.
And I believe he is looking for some volunteers, so if anyone is interested in being part of that, then we'll be posting about the timeframe and opportunities to be able to do that.
So it says approved design, we approved it?
Yes.
And has the city council seen it?
City council has seen it, the city manager has seen it, we've run it through all of the traps.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they've all seen it, everyone's pretty excited that it's a very cohesive looking park once this is all done, cause it's all kind of same color scheme.
Are you not gonna kind of advertise in that community that they can come and volunteer?
Mhm.
Yes. Because that buy-in is important.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Tyson's already reached out to, I think there's either 2 or 3 churches right around there. He's reached out to them, some of the members of the community that live around there. He reached out to the school, right before the end of, the school year. And so we're gonna be advertising on our Facebook too, because he really wants people to come help, whether you can be out there, for 4 days straight or an hour, cause he really wanted that community buy-in. So we'll be posting, I think he's gonna do it July 4th through 9th, somewhere in there.
All right, here's an update from our Park Beautification Day on May 11th. We went to Temple Park, we cleaned up lots and lots of trash, for those of us that were there, it was many bags of trash. So we mainly did that, we painted some of the, parking stops and, put up the banners letting everybody know that there was a splash pad to come, so.
And one other thing that came out of that, there's a path from the convenience store that's kind of on the back end of this up to Temple, and that's where we found all the alcohol bottles, an immense amount of trash. We did let code enforcement know about that, so they have been in contact with the property owners and hopefully going to be curbing that, because part of that was on city property, just where our property lines are, but the other part is not city property.
Is there a fence?
There's not right there, no.
Is there gonna be?
That can be a budget request. Right now, I know a lot of people kind of cut across when they're coming.
But there's a fence on the park though.
But
The-
just not
there-
between the
Not between
convenience store.
that
Yeah.
area, I don't think.
Yeah, so our property line goes back pretty far, so we could put a fence. I just don't know if it'd be a cohesive fence all the way around to force people to walk down the street, or if they would cut another
So most
cattle.
of the traffic is regular traffic.
Mhm.
A lot of it, I think, is from pilgrims walking to that convenience store then.
Walking to the neighborhoods back there. And so we could put up some fencing. I think you may end up with another cattle trail through another part of the woods that goes to the back, but we can definitely look into that and see kind of what that would cost or what that fence line would look like. But there is a fence around the playground itself.
Yeah.
So is this gonna be programmed to not work during non-park hours?
Yes.
Yes. That's how Maroni is as well. I think Maroni, you can't turn it on after 8 p.m., even though the park technically closes at 10 p.m. But we cut that a little bit earlier just because if it gets dark, we don't want kids out there slipping and sliding around and things like that. But yes, all of our parks are closed at 10, but Maroni closes at 8 and this one will as well.
So our next Park Beautification Day is set for September 14th, so you guys want to put that on your calendar?
Haven't decided yet. We're happy to have any suggestions. I'm hoping to do a trail/creek one.
Yes.
We
Let's go bust up the log jam.
Bring your gloves.
Because that's what we race.
Wow,
Yeah.
you know, I looked at it and it's like, it's so bad,
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, to get regular people there or get with Boy Scouts or, it is so bad. I mean, it's gonna require quite a few chainsaws and a lot of muscle to get it, because it literally goes to the top of the ridges.
Yeah, and we were going to do a trail cleanup day, May 11th, and then we went down there and there was so much of the trail we could not get to because it was completely flooded. So hopefully by September, everything will still be dry-ish and we can safely get down there, and whether it's removing trees or trash or debris, we're hoping to do it on some section of Trail or Creek in September. That's kind of the goal.
So the Moroni Splash Pad did have its opening day, May 24th, and for the most part, it's been going well, so this is good. We had a scheduled event for National Trails Day, June 1st. Unfortunately, we got a ton of rain and the whole thing got rained out, so we did cancel that event. And then our annual running of the blueberries for part of the Blueberry Festival was able to happen, even though we'd had so much rain. We just made a slightly alternate route for the very end of it. But we ended up with 364 registered participants. And after all of our expenses and everything, we managed to make $11,500 towards dog park.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It was great. It was hot.
It was nice and warm. Coming up in July, we have our, that is Park and Recreation Month. So the National Recreation and Parks Association recognized Parks and Recreation the month of July. So their theme this year is Where You Belong, but they do some advertising and things like that, but of course encourage all parks and recreations to get involved as well. So for us, we will be celebrating with some social media posts and activity engagement with the use of Parks Points. So we have our little sheet here, so people can get themselves a score sheet and do some of the different activities, mark them off, and then they can turn them in for Parks Points for prizes. So we're hoping to get some engagement with
Are the
the
activities
citizens.
on that slide, or is it just,
It probably is hard to read. They're like in the little bubbles.
okay.
But yeah, it's stuff like pick up one bag of trash, or, you know, like 5 of our social media posts in July.
Walk on a trail.
Walk on a trail, attend open gym, I think is one of them here. So of course, the free activities are the lower points, and then the higher points are, you know, walk, you know, or pick up 5 bags of trash, I think gets you 10 points. So I think the max you can get, we added up, is about 85 points, and we'll enter people into prize categories, so that way if you get 50 to 85 points, you may be able to get a free Liberty Hall rental. Something like that. We also have a giveaway for anybody that, even if they get 1 point, they can get one of those cool water bottle stickers. They're all animal themed, and the kiddos love them. My child has his water bottle completely covered in them. So we'll do that just as a way for people to, you know, we're trying to force them to like all of our social media stuff, to participate. Because especially with this month, their theme is, you know, the Where You Belong, and trying to foster people like buying into their parks community. So we want people to have some skin in the game. And some of that's picking up trash and liking our social media stuff and sharing things. So we're pretty excited about it.
So that'll all kick off July 1st, and we'll have a few different things that we do during the month, but this will be kind of our bigger celebration item. And then coming up towards the end of July, we are going to be doing a movie in the park. We're actually partnering with the library, and we're doing, so that whole last week of July is Shark Week. So at the end, we're going to do a shark-themed movie. We're going to watch Shark Tale, and it'll be family-friendly, encouraging families to come out and enjoy the park. We'll have some games. We'll have, you know, bring your own water guns, or, you know, whatever else you want to do. Bring your own baby pool. So it'll be just a fun, family-friendly activity outside in the park. And it'll probably be very warm, so I think hopefully everybody will enjoy cooling off a little bit. So that is one of the things on our Parks Point list, is if you attend the Shark Week movie.
I wanted to show Jaws, but evidently that is not
Not
appropriate.
family-friendly.
But I'm saying I would go see Jaws.
But as a family.
Yeah, it's like it's
true.
apparently that's not
Some of them get
appropriate.
eaten, I think. All right, so coming up, we have our update. Oh, I'll let you.
No, you're
So that was
fine.
everything
Let's
for
go.
the activities and
Yeah.
events.
Yeah, sorry, we're on 5 now.
All right, so our Sportsplex park restrooms, they kind of started similar time to Pecan and Festival and everything, but they just weren't done. But now they're done. They've been completed. Our Recreation Gymnastics Center also got a new floor, which was
Much needed.
Much needed for anyone that has been in that room. So, that has been completed and finished, and.
And you can see the picture on the left, you can see some of the chips
Yeah,
that
there's like a
come out of
whole
the
chunk missing over there. But yes, the new floor is kind of like a rubber, almost like what you would find in like a workout gym. And so it's great because it's softer, and then it also,
It's grippy. It's
yeah,
not slippery at all.
not slippery at all, which was part of our issue with the last one too. So, it's been a good addition. And then our Lake Nacogdoches West restrooms, that work started on June 17th. So they've already got that going now. And then also our Lake Nacogdoches accessible walkway is pretty much done. We're doing final walkthrough, and then we still have to do the addition of the beach sand as well. The rain kind of,
It's a problem we've never had before, that the lake level is so high that we didn't wanna add sand yet and then have the lake level drop and all of a sudden you have sand and then like 6 feet of dirt. The water level's starting to recede a little bit, so we're hoping to get the sand in by 4th of July weekend, but, yeah, so that's the hope. Because we'd like to put the sand in and remove the construction fencing, and then we'll officially be done because we finally got, the grass established. It seems like every time we put grass seed down, it rained
Yep.
that night and washed it away, and we had to do that a lot. But that part's been established, so now we're kind of ready for the sand. So hopefully that'll be done in the next 2 weeks or so.
And you can still get the sand at the soccer field, because it's still piled up.
oh no.
That's what, there's a few low areas, Brian's taking it. There's a few low areas in some of the parks too that Tommy's been going and getting sand and putting it in other places. But we may add some out here. There's also 2 big washes. If you've been out to Lake Nac West and you go down near the boat ramp, over to your left, near the lower restroom, there's huge washes and culverts through there we're gonna start adding sand into as well, cause it looks pretty bad.
What's the time frame on the restrooms?
So those restrooms, will not take all that long, thank goodness, because it's not a tear down and rebuild, they're just rehabbing the inside. So from start to finish, they've said about a month, unless we have delays with the partitions, because we're putting those really nice plastic partitions in there rather than, like right now, it's, brick walls essentially between each stall. So the partition should be delivered in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and everything else should go pretty quickly, so.
Is that for the upper and the lower?
Yes, yeah, Lake Nac West, it'll, they've started on the lower with the demolition right now, and then they will start the upper, I believe, at the end of this week for the demo. And we have put portable restrooms out there for the interim, just for anybody still using it since they're closed.
Doors on them?
Yes. As far as on the stalls, is that what you mean? Yes, there will be. Yeah, right now there's no doors on the stalls, which is,
There's someone who's out there right now, is there some beach that they can use?
there still is, it's, some sand that's left over. It's not a great looking beach. You can kind of see it in this picture here. And we've removed a small section of that construction, that black construction fencing, so they can get around and still use it. So it's still safe to use. We just had that fencing until we get the sand. So it's still accessible. It's just not as pretty as I would like it to be. It what?
It's mud.
Yeah, it's kind of just mud at this point. Sand has washed away over the years, and there was just so much water that there was really no place to put sand other than on the new walkway, until the last probably 2 weeks. But yeah, as far as the restroom, it should take roughly a month, as long as all the stuff gets delivered in the time frame they say it's going to right now.
Alright. And so that's all for our construction projects.
Thank you. And we're gonna move on to park amenities. There's already some recommended amenities.
Well, so there was, someone on the board that was interested in discussing the park amenities at each park, so I've kind of lined out what is available at the park. One of the things that was mentioned was maybe grills, so we did some research, and, if we were interested in putting new grills at parks, it would be between $300 and $400. Currently, this is a picture of like Nacogdoches West that does have grills available, but you can kind of see, they're not brand new, obviously.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to be replaced or anything, then that would be about the price that we'd be looking at.
Is that price per grill, or is that to
Yes,
do a
per
whole
grill.
park area? Okay.
Okay, so was anybody wanna discuss, ideas for amenities in Lake, West?
I was
Anybody
curious
here?
if there's is there a charcoal dump area for these grills?
So there is not a specific charcoal dump. When people call and ask if they are allowed to grill at parks, they are told that as long as they dispose of the coals correctly, which means not putting hot coals in our garbage cans.
We've
So-
faced that several times
Yes.
with, and we've had
So
melted
as of
trash
right
can.
now, to answer your question, there is not a specific coal,
Well, I think if we're gonna provide grills as a city, then we should have a charcoal dump area, just because I've used them before, you know. And, nobody's gonna discard their charcoal properly and put it in a bucket and take it home. They're gonna let it just sit there and be a mess. If you offer a service, they might actually do it. And so that would be something to look into. If we're gonna provide nice grills, let's provide a nice place to dump the charcoal, that's my opinion.
What the US Park Service does is around every one of those grills would be a lot of that nice round gravel.
Mhm.
One for if the spark gets down there, it won't catch on fire. The rain tends to wash that style of grill out and the ashes disappear onto the ground. You see that on almost all your national parks. Yeah, they usually do have a place to put it. Most people won't bother.
yeah, and there are different options. This particular version, there's options for that one, but then there's some that the option is that there's like concrete or gravel underneath them as well.
We can definitely look at a charcoal disposal option as well, because like you said, people are going to pour it in the trash cans.
If
We-
it's hard, you
Mhm.
need a cement square thing somewhere that they can just dump it into and not have water spray.
I don't think it would be something that we'd wanna spend a lot of money on, because odds are, they're not gonna go from here to the end of their day, and while they're loading the car with all their stuff, and say, oh, no, we have to get rid of, we have to go dispose of the ashes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So are, so are the grills that are there, are they not functional right now? They're
currently
functional?
functional.
Yeah, they're functional, they're
I
just
mean, I know
not
they're
pretty.
not glamorous.
Yeah,
but-
they're just not pretty. They're just
Yeah.
park grills that are
Yeah.
heavily used. And we do have them kind of on a schedule, like Tommy replaces, 10 picnic tables per year, benches. Same thing with the grills. They get replaced. I think he said they usually last about 5 years before people burn through them or they get knocked over or something like that. So these are just about at their replacement age, because really we see the grates on them either walk
Deteriorate,
away,
right,
they
yeah.
deteriorate, things like that. So these are about 5-year grills for the most part.
But I do have some more
Mhm.
information about, so these are just kind of a lot of the other parks that we have, and then the amenities that exist at those parks, for you guys to take a look at, so that if there's anything that you feel like we're missing in the parks, then you guys could discuss.
Yeah, and this is something we can also send out to y'all because we've submitted the Parks and Rec budget for this upcoming fiscal 24-25 year. At this point, council's about to review it, so it's kind of out of our hands, which means as soon as we've submitted for this coming year, we already start working on next year too. And so even if it's not something we can do today, if the Parks Advisory Board wants to say like, I think we need this many picnic tables at every single park, or we only want grills here, or we need charcoal disposal areas at every position, or at every park, we can easily start pulling numbers together and have it ready for when we have to resubmit all this stuff to council in what feels like a couple months again.
So in the, budget that was submitted to council, I don't feel like we played a role in what was put on there. And so my question is, what was put on there as far as, projects? I understand that there's an operating budget that we don't have any control over, but as far as new items, and then how did those items, fulfill the long-range planning that we did for our parks? I'm curious about that, because I think that providing that to the, unless we're saying that's not a viable plan anymore, I think that providing that to the advisory board might be helpful if we're asking them to think about park amenities, so they can see the things that at one point were determined to be what we wanna do in the future. Not that we can't And so I think we should, be looking at that as a guide, and it might help if the advisory board had a copy of that. Maybe you have one, I don't know, but,
You know about the Parks Master Plan that
Yeah.
y'all did? Yeah. And we can absolutely send that out, and we can even make that a discussion item at our, July meeting as well,
yeah,
as
it'd
far
be
as.
smart, because
Yeah.
I wanna make sure it's still a working document for us.
Absolutely. The only thing we've mentioned to people is it may need an update here in the next couple years, because
Yeah.
my example, I always tell people, I'm like, this this long-term parks plan is great, doesn't say the word pickleball
Yeah.
anywhere in there, and pickleball has taken the world by
Yeah.
storm. So there may be small updates needed, but it's definitely still something we reference and use for budget, but I'd be happy to send that out to everybody as along with our draft budget, which of course
Yeah.
has not, and even by, our July meeting will not have been adopted by council yet, but I'm more than happy to share what we requested.
Yeah, I don't think we can dig into it, most of it's not accessible to us anyway, but I just wanna make sure that the board's aware of what that looks like.
Absolutely.
So, speaking of pickleball and picnic tables, so there's like the north courts and the south courts.
Are you talking about Maroni?
Yeah, Maroni, and then, so west side of the north side courts, there's this really beautiful, really flat area.
Mhm.
And so I said to Joe Aguirre, I said, you know, I think what we need to do is we need to get a picnic table project. And we would, they would be wooden,
Mhm.
but we would raise money, build picnic tables, and put the picnic tables out there if we could.
Yeah, just, if you and Joe wanna call us and come meet, so that way we can make sure we know the area we're looking at, but especially if any group wants to fundraise for some of those things, usually it's a lot easier and faster project to get done. And that doesn't have to follow our budget calendar or anything like that. So yeah, Joy and I and Tommy would be happy to help you out with that.
Well, because we have an issue with, when there's 20, 30 old people playing, and then everybody has to have a place to sit, so then you get people playing and chairs and blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And it's like, if we had picnic tables out there,
Mhm.
the community could really use them, because the placement of picnic tables at Maroni is not really conducive to actually, I mean, there's one here on the hill, there's one here outside the gate, and then there's two jammed in underneath the pavilion at the basically unusable playground.
Mhm.
So we could do that area, picnic, it would be like a picnic area.
If you wanna get something done quickly with the city, raise the money. It's amazing how much you can get done.
I'm like a strong arm on raising money, and I just humiliate people. It comes out of the pickleball community. They're playing pickleball for free.
There
They
you
can
go.
afford
There you
to
go.
put up some money and help to make things nice.
Yeah, and we're happy to help with that, 'cause especially those picnic tables, they're in the spots that they have been for the last 20 years, and when the court got redone, they weren't moved or anything, so especially if it's being used differently than it was 20 years ago, then, that kinda leads to, we need to readjust that. So yeah, if y'all wanna hit up me and Joy and Tommy, we'd be happy to help you. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to parks and
Okay, so this is just one example of a sign at a park. So obviously there's a bunch of different signs at different parks saying different types of things. But we are trying to update so that all of our park signage looks the same. And so we know that you guys are out and about and in the parks and seeing these different signs that have different things on them. So if anyone would like to volunteer to assist us in kind of getting like an inventory of all of our different signs so that we can streamline and make sure that each park is having the information that it needs to have, but also this park kind of says the same thing as this park if they have similar uses.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause right now, I mean, if you go to Maroni, I think there's probably 7 different signs out there, if I had to guess. We're not necessarily trying to get every park down to one sign, because like Maroni has really 3 different types of uses. But there have been things that have brought up, I know Sue's brought up, on the trails, we need to have signs that say, like, your dog needs to be on a leash. Our HR department brought up that we need to have on all of our signs, say like, play at your own risk, in case some kid jumps off the top of a play
Yeah.
structure.
And that's a sign that I think needs to be put on the trail
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
Especially between Main Street and Park, because it is kind of hairy.
Mhm.
But it's like, I don't care how good you think you are at blocking off between Park and Martinsville, it's being used.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but
We have a sign out there that says like, walk at your own, like, clothes.
And it needs
Yeah.
sign, just,
Mhm.
forget the trail closed, because
Mhm.
they're not buying that, so
Yeah.
just, walk at your own risk, or,
Mhm.
like, state parks have levels of capability of, moderate, easy,
Mhm.
difficult, and at this point, the end of, at Martinsville is pretty difficult.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um,
So you're wanting, somebody to take pictures of all the signs?
Ideally, if you said, I'm at Pecan Park all the time, I will volunteer to adopt Pecan Park, and then it'd be like taking pictures of every sign out there and sending it to us, so that way it's,
Yeah.
we know these 10 signs are at Pecan,
Yeah.
how do we consolidate them?
I'll
Yeah.
take pecan.
I'll take the lanes.
West or both, okay?
I'll take the trail
Okay.
and the soccer field.
I'll take Pioneer Park.
Okay.
When do you want that?
You haven't already done it?
Yesterday?
Ideally, by the end of July, if possible, because we'd like to start working on this in August, because we do have some money in our current budget to update some signs, so it may not be all of them, but we at least have some money we can spend in this budget year and then do the rest in next budget year. So ideally by the end of July.
I'll do the North Lane Trail from Washington.
And even the ones, the Pets on a Leash, they're like 7 feet in the air. Like, even if they could just go around right now and just lower them to eye level,
Okay.
that might help.
Yeah, so any suggestions that you might have as to how to make the signs more viewable, or in a, hey, the sign's here, but it really needs to be here. That would be, helpful as well.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that this is a little cluttered with the logo at the top like that? I mean, is there a way to do it where the headline of what's important about the sign is the key thing versus having issues in the town?
Yeah, we definitely can. The logo can be moved around. That was just kind of making sure people understood that it was a city put those
Yeah.
up. Because especially at pickleball and a few other places, we have people put up their individual group signs. So we'd have to have the logo on there somewhere, but it doesn't have to be the header.
Okay,
It can
any
be-
other parks, or we pretty much got it there? I mean, I know they're all parks, but I think this
I was
will
gonna say,
give
I'll
you-
do whatever's left over. I'm not picky. Or if
So-
you wanna send out,
Everything else.
if
All-
you wanna send an email, out with what's left, and we can
Yeah,
just,
I
as we
can
have
send
time, go
email
pick them up.
Of the ones
Yeah.
that people have chosen already, and then
Yeah.
the ones that are still left,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that, okay.
Can I ask, when do you have to have your budget in, your annual budget?
So for the departments, we submit ours usually around the middle of April. And then we do the first round of finance, and city manager starts to look at it around May and June, and then typically council will start reviewing it in budget workshops in July. Because then they also have to look at they kind of usually split it up into our general fund requests, capital requests, anything that has to do with the tax rate. And a lot of times they'll split those up into different meetings that take July, sometimes into August, because there are certain dates, from what I understand, they have to set a tax rate, they have to propose the budget, and there has to be so many hearings of it, and then we have to adopt it in September so it can hit October 1. But we submit our stuff by usually mid-April. It's a very long, drawn-out process.
Was there anything else on park signage? Was that it?
That was it.
Okay. This placeholder number 8, future goals vision. I think the next meeting, if we get these documents from you guys concerning the long range plan and the amenities list you had, I think it'd be good to stop and look at that and see if we're on course with the long range plan that we've set for ourselves. I don't see any reason to do it today. Do y'all have anything particular you want to talk about today? Anything else from you guys?
Only one more announcement. This is Carly Allen. She is our new Community Services Assistant Director. So when I took Brian's spot, she took my spot. So she started with us June 1st, right? Third, yeah. So Carly is now in my old office, so, she is part of our staff, so you may get emails from her occasionally as well.
Welcome aboard.
And I haven't run her off yet. It's been almost a full month.
Yeah, it's week 4,
I
so.
do have one thing I'd like to see, an update on. You know, we haven't had any updates for like 5 months on the LED initiative. And so I'd like to get an update on that. And, I'd like to also know who's actually in charge of doing that. Because we voted to do this like 5 months ago.
Mhm.
And I've heard nothing on it since. So where are we at on that? Is it appropriate to get an update from?
We can get an update. Right now, a lot of that, since most of our billing and our contracts with our utilities goes through our finance department. Right now, it's been in their hands and they've had tremendous turnover, so I can check with them and see where they are in getting us all of our, unit numbers, getting us permission to pull all the meters, things like that. So it's been with them for a bit, but I'd be happy to check in with them and then put that on the agenda.
Anything else for the next agenda? Now's your chance.
Is there anything new on locking the bathroom?
So, and this will come up a little bit in the next meeting, but, we have done a budget request for adding timed locks to the 4 existing restrooms, that we have, and then putting, those specs in the new restrooms that were part of the bond package. So it's gone from me to our city manager and will go on to council during their workshop.
Because speaking of time blocks, did you see, what's the country club in Lufkin? Their bathroom on their golf course, their golf course is closed, but their bathroom with the time
Mhm.
lock on it got broken into. So you might wanna check with them.
Okay.
And they might know what exactly happened, because a lot of, from what I saw, a lot of damage was done. Back on those time locks on it.
You used, the phrase bond package.
Mhm.
Is that separate from the budget?
So the bond package are the items that the public voted on as part of the public bond. So, those projects were voted on, they're kind of administered by city council at this point. But yes, that is not part of our budget request. That's something that council votes on or reviews separately.
So there's a bond park package for the parks
Mhm.
that the advisory board doesn't have any say in.
As far as I understand, so the Capital Needs Advisory Committee is the one that did the meetings, set the priorities. Council voted on, those items to go on the ballot, and that was voted on by the public, and council administers the timing and things like that. I'd be happy to put on the next agenda what was put in our essentially the first tranche that city council voted on, because it did have some park items in there.
It's already been voted on.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I wanna see what the tranche is.
Okay.
And then I'm assuming the members of CNAC are public.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Did we get their minutes?
Yeah, I can, yeah, their meetings are posted. I don't think they've met since, I believe they recommended the projects to be put on the ballot, and that was back before November. I don't know if they've met since then, but I can check.
Yeah, any minutes that are relevant to the bond, I would like to see how those might be.
I think our engineering department administered that committee, so I can check and see where their minutes are. Okay.
Anything else?
So, I think we discussed this one time before, but they made the decision which bathrooms and what time frame. But we had a question as to, can we determine which ones you do?
As
Or
far
is that
as,
set as far as like, okay, was it Mill Park? we were
Yeah, Mill
talking
Park,
about?
like,
Yeah.
why put one there? Why not
Mhm.
use that money elsewhere? Can we reappropriate the money where we see fit?
I will have to double check. So officially, council is the only one that can affect that budget. I don't know if there's a mechanism for advisory boards to make a recommendation to take to council, but I can ask. Because as far as I understood, the CNAC went through essentially the entire, capital needs list, which was roughly, I think, $800 million worth of stuff, because it was kind of everything thrown on the table. and then went through and said, we think it should be this, 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 and this, and then city council voted to put those items on the ballot. So I don't know how much wiggle room there is or what the mechanism is to take, essentially, you know, recommendations from this board to council, but I can ask if that can be done, and if so, how that's done. So I'm happy to ask that question.
I'm guessing it can be done. I mean, I would guess that the city manager would welcome the input of the Parks Advisory Board regarding the use of bond funds. That's just my guess.
But wasn't the bond specific on bathrooms for Bonita?
So not on specific locations. The 2.2 was for park restrooms, playgrounds, and I believe exercise equipment or improvements to parks, recreation, trail facilities. So it calls out those 3 items, but also has the caveat of or other things, essentially under the Parks and Recreation umbrella. So if any changes take place, I don't know what the mechanism is for that, but I'm happy to ask, because some of that's with our finance department, legal team, and then our city council.
Are there other departments that have advisory boards like this?
Are there other, the airport has an advisory board.
Did that have bond issues on it?
It does, yes. I think they were propositioned.
Were they involved in the process, or were they completely circumvented by CNAC?
I don't know if they had an involvement or not. I know the CNAC visited the airport, but I don't know if their committee was involved. I would have to ask their airport.
The airport was unique because it had a matching grant,
Yeah.
so that kind of changed the dynamics of the airport.
Yeah, because theirs is contingent upon matching grant funds. I don't know if any other departments, because almost all the rest of it was streets and sewer and fire department, and they do not have boards. So I believe it was parks and airport, I believe, are the only 2 that have advisory boards.
Cemetery?
Cemetery does have an advisory board.
Wasn't there one for the?
Yes, there was for a mowing building. You're right. But yes, cemetery does have an advisory board. And same thing that CNAC went and visited the cemetery properties, but I don't believe their board was involved.
Who's the chair of CNAC?
Oh goodness, I would have to look, because CNAC kind of did its part for, getting the bond on the ballot, and then I believe kind of their duties were changed to then look at utilities, so I don't know if,
Wait, say it again, you said CNAC got the bond on the ballot.
CNAC recommended the projects to city council, and then city council voted, because what CNAC submitted to city council, and I can go back and pull that for y'all, was we recommend parks get 2.2 million for these types of projects. On a ballot, from what I understand from the legal side of things, they couldn't say Bonita Creek, this for each amount of money, but they could recommend the types of projects, so.
I thought CNAC didn't exist until after the ballot.
No, CNAC existed before.
So who was the group that donated money to promote the passing of the bond issue?
That is,
That was
NAC now, I
NAC
believe.
now.
So I think there was, from what I understand, there was some members of that CNAC committee that I believe resigned from that once the ballot, or once the election was called, and then formed essentially that NAC now, which I believe is a PAC.
So NAC now was back and it formed what you were saying?
No, so NAC now, just promoted the actual bond election. CNAC is the committee that city council appointed to come up with projects, to review everything, and then recommend those items to city council.
There was a lot of overlap there. A lot of NAC now people were CNAC people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure if they resigned or if the committee was sunset. I'm not sure what happened with that part of it.
Yeah.
That was a
I
little
had asked
outside.
you what the overlap was before.
Yeah, and I can pull the members, because they've also been kind of, they're supposed to be looking at a utility rate study and things like that now, and I know there's been some turnover on that board, and I don't know if they've picked back up meeting or not. But I can ask.
Okay. If we asked CNAC to be here, would they?
I'm happy to ask. I don't
I'm
know.
not asking yet, I wanna think on it.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Right, thank y'all.
Thank you.